to roll. Well, who is excited for December's CincyAI for Humans Meetup? Want to hear it? I am too. This is the last meetup of the year, and it is now 13 months into the CincyAI for Humans Meetup. I get the pleasure, well, again, I'm Sabrina Donnelly. I kind of help advise and just volunteer, but the amazing people I get to introduce are the amazing co-founders of CincyAI for Humans, and that is Kendra Ramirez and Helen Todd. So Kendra Ramirez is the CEO of KR Digital. She has been helping organizations navigate the digital landscape for a very long time, including the AI space. And her mission is that no human would be left behind in this AI imagination phase. And also Helen Todd is the CEO of Sociality Squared and a founder of Creativity Squared, the podcast. If you're not subscribed, you should be subscribed. And her vision is to make Cincinnati the center of responsible AI, not only for Ohio, but for the whole nation and country. We've got some amazing speakers lined up. Without further ado, here is Kendra.
Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited. I love being with you all. Our community is the best, like literally. And as much travels as Helen and I have been doing and visiting other AI communities, and we hear it time and time again from people that come and visit us here from Chicago and Louisville and New York and other areas, and they're like, we don't have this in our community. And what they're talking about is the level of collaboration that happens with you all. I want you to know this is a community of over 1,100 people at this point. This is crazy. This is crazy. And the fact that you all keep showing up month after month after month and always being able to share and learn. So thank you, thank you. Please give yourselves a round of applause. So we could not do this without the help from UC, Dr. Kelly Cohen and the team here at UC in the Digital Futures Building, and for allowing us to use this beautiful, beautiful space. If you didn't get a chance to do the tour, it's incredible. There's an AI Bio Lab, AI Research Lab, a drone lab, an AR VR lab, a smart manufacturing lab. There's so much incredible things that are happening right here in our community. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. And then also our other partners is Seven Hills Technology. Charlie, I know you're here somewhere. There he is, he's right in front of me. Charlie from Seven Hills Technology. They immediately jumped in when we started this, and I was like, hey, this is all self-funded and we have costs involved. And they were the very first ones that said, well, we'll sponsor you for the whole year. I'm like, oh, bless you. Literally when Brad told me that, I like teared up. I was like, oh my gosh. And then also big Seven Hills with also Big Kitty Labs. And Big Kitty Labs, Tashar and Morgan and those guys also have just absolutely been incredible partners. They both are software development organizations, custom development, and also AI development. So our hats off to our sponsors. We could not do this without you all. So thank you so much. Thank you. All right, that's big round of applause. Yes. Yeah, it's not cheap to host these, by the way. It's not cheap. So we want to know who's here, right? So who's in the room? So where are my AI curious? Right? AI curious? Awesome. Thank you. Good. And where are my AI users? All right. That's everyone, right? That's everyone? Yes. Yeah. Do you use Amazon? Do you use Netflix? You're already using AI, whether you know it or not. And where are my builders? Where are my AI builders? Good. All right, builders, keep your hands up. Keep them up high. Everyone in the room, these are your new best friends, right? You think I'm kidding? I'm not. I say that every single month because it's true. We all need AI builders in our lives because we need help navigating. And that's why I love this community so much, because everyone always jumps in and collaborates and helps and educates. There's so much partnerships happening here, so much job opportunities that are happening here, and it's just really incredible to be a small part of all of that. Where are my first-timers? Yay! Welcome! If you're here and you don't have someone, with you, you don't have a wing person with you, let Helen and I be that wing person. I know it's a little crazy going into a full room of people and navigating that. Let us know why you're here, what you need. I'm happy to connect you with someone in our community. So making sure that you let us know, because we want to connect you into this community and anything that you need in your navigation and your journey. Awesome. So we are absolutely thrilled. Like, this is, I don't think people understand how big of a deal this is. So we had started a state of AI survey to really understand what's going on in the 8 counties in the greater Cincinnati area and northern Kentucky. And so literally it is less than 4 minutes. I timed myself. It took me 3 minutes and 38 seconds to complete this survey. And so we extended the deadline due to a partnership with the Cincinnati Chamber. So Cincinnati Chamber is like, this is really important to our community as well, and we want to be involved. And so we were absolutely honored that they want to participate in that. And so we're like, okay, let's extend the deadline, because they also need to make some announcements on their end. So we're extending the deadline on that. Please, please, please take time to fill out the survey. It's also on our social media, as well. And then it's also in our e-newsletter. So please, share it wide and far. We want to be able to send back out all the data that comes from it. So that's our goal. And then having that as a nice baseline of, here's where we are today. And then do it again. It'll be an annual thing, and do it again, and look how much growth and opportunity has happened, with that. So thank you, all those that have already participated, and all those that are also helping us kind of share and spread the word on that. So thank you so much for that. All right, we all have to celebrate. Helen Todd was selected to be a solo speaker at South by Southwest, and this is a huge deal. So proud of her.
To sneak this in. So the presentation is Farewell Information Age, Welcome to the Imagination Age, and I'm actually doing a salon-style preview of it on Monday, December 9th at the 1819 building, right across the street, so you don't have to go all the way to South by Southwest to see it. So if you're in town and want to go, it'll be a special viewing, and also Assam Shabazz is flying in from Minneapolis, and he runs the data for public good in Twin Cities Innovation Alliance there. And after I present, he's going to join me on stage for a quick fireside chat, and then we'll open it up to questions and feedback about a lot of the concepts. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'm looking forward.
Yeah, can't wait to be there. So expectations, flow, process of how do we maneuver through our time together. We do quick bite rounds, and so that is something where someone's just less than 3 minutes, stands up, share a tip, a tool, something you're excited about, or ask the community a question. And then from that, any demos, if we have an opportunity for that. We do have special speakers today, and we're really, really thrilled to be able to present those to you as well. And then we'll do Q&A and shout-outs. So we'll put up a little QR code through Slido where you can submit your questions. Because sometimes you're like, I have questions, but I don't want to look silly asking the questions, so you can submit them anonymously. We'll collectively, because everybody in the audience also can answer them. And the shout-outs is due to our friend Jeff. Like, he shouted out to someone else, like, hey, I just want to let someone know that Tom over there helped me navigate something. And we're like, all right, that goes into the process every time we're together, because we love being able to celebrate you all as well. And then group photo. This is herding cats. So when we're done, you've done all the presentations, all the speaking, all the things. When we say, okay, everyone, to the wall, what it means is we're all going to stand up and go to the wall, and we're going to take a group photo, and then after that, you can do all the networking and collaborating you want, and we know the introverts will dart out after that photo. I had someone last month, they're like, why you gotta call me out like that? No, we're very friendly here. This is safe. We've got you. So we'll do a group photo and then networking, collaborating afterwards. And again, please don't hesitate to grab Helen and I. If there's something in particular you're trying to get connected to in our community or have questions, that's what we're here for. All right, with that, I'm handing back over to Helen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Okay, it's so good to be here today. There's so many exciting things happening. And for those who are with us for the first time, CincyAI, we actually get a lot of credit for driving the responsible AI and AI grassroots movement here in Cincinnati. We are big proponents of it, and we are so happy to be here in the Digital Futures Building, which is part of the $100 million investment into the Innovation District, and housed here. There's everything from the Bio Lab, Extended Reality Lab, Future Mobility Lab. So if you ever get a chance, I don't know if we'll be offering tours again next year, maybe. Kyle's shaking his head yes. If you ever get an opportunity to do a tour, please do. And our organizing partner is Dr. Kelly Cohen, who is not only a gym for this free gym, but for the world. He's been doing AI research, and specifically responsible AI research, for 20, 30 years. We're very lucky to have him in Cincinnati, and also as a organizing partner for CincyAI. So we're the community arm. UC Digital Futures is our academic excellence hub, and then also there's the Cincinnati AI Catalyst, which I'm a member of, and we should have someone speaking about it later today. It's a consortium of experts that come together on a volunteer basis to help uplift the 2.3 million residents in the 8 counties in Cincinnati to make sure no one gets left behind, a potential intelligence divide. And that's from newest project team is healthcare, but it's workforce redevelopment, education, and startup support, and more. So if you're interested in any of that, let us know. But the mantra across the board is a rising tide lifts all ships. And as Kendra pointed out, we are here to connect, collaborate, and learn from one another. Okay, and we champion responsible AI. And today I am so excited that we have the Content Authenticity Initiative here is Adobe and this organization and our other partners here from PixelStream really embrace responsible AI baked into their products, and you're going to learn a whole lot more about what this means through the lens of content credentials today. We do have a new website live, CincyAI.org. We're still the newsletter still is probably the best space for all of our information, but we're getting the workflow for the website. But we do have an official home, CincyAI.org, and we're very active on LinkedIn, as most of you probably already know. Okay, there's a lot of events coming up. The biggest one to make note of is Cincy Cyber Week is actually today, the 5th, and we'll have someone speak about that. This will be in the newsletter and on the website. A few other ones, we'll talk on December 9th that I just mentioned. And then we also have Chris Brock's AI Tinkerers, December 6th. All of the builders in the room, that's a good one. The AI for Nonprofits webinar, Keith Blackshaw and Kendra is leading that one. And then January 9th, I saw Dawn is here, the NKU This Access Hub hands-on training. That's really great for people who want one-on-one, but very hands-on learning. A lot of the people in the room are also coaches for that. I think that gets us through most of mid-January. Okay, and then our next meeting is Tuesday, January 14th, and we have all of the dates already secured for next year, so you can mark your calendars. And for the newbies, we release the tickets about a month in advance. As you know, they sell out kind of quick. They're free, but they sell out quick. Okay, and then there's more for next year. Oh, the one thing that I did want to, we'll just do a show of hands because I ran out of time to put this into our Slido. Different people have approached me that oh, South by Southwest has always been on my bucket list. Oh, maybe we can get a Cincinnati cohort to go this year. I'm speaking. But if there's interest, I know at least 3 different people have told me oh, I might go to South by Southwest this year. So if you're interested, let me know, or just to show a raise of hands, and we can start maybe organizing. Okay, so that's 3, 4, 5. Like a mini cohort, and we've had cohorts go to the MIT AI Summit in Boston, but maybe I'll try to make it more organized this time. So very cool. Okay, so now we get to the most fun part of the programming. There we go. Of our quick bites rounds. So this is where we're going to ask a question to the community, share an AI tip or tool, and share what you're excited about. So we have a few of our regular quick bites, but because we have special guests today, the bulk of the programming is actually going to be about content authenticity initiative, which I'll introduce in a second. But before we do that, we're going to do some of our regular quick bites. And I don't know if I saw, is John Kavanaugh in here? I see John. Yay, John. Okay, come on down. He's going to kick us off in our quick bites. And then is John Salisbury also here? Do I see him? Okay, well, John, you can talk about Cincy Cyber Week season. Okay, here you go, John, kick us off.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming. Cincy Cyber Week started today and goes until the 5th of Thursday. I wanted to invite you to a panel, it's free. I wanted to invite you to a very special panel that I will be on, Dr. Kelly Cohen and John Salisbury will be on, and Chuck will be the plenary speaker. We are speaking about a concept called the WIN framework, and it's a way to quantify the risk that a company faces with AI when you talk about dollars. And it's going to be a very practical way to engage with finding out if AI is worth it for your organization and business and things that you need to look out for in the future. So it is at noon on Thursday, December 5th, noon to 2. It will start with Chuck talking for about 35 minutes. Then we will have a group led by Kelly Cohen who will ask questions. We'll have Alicia Herman, I'll be on it, John Salisbury will be on it, and Alicia's at Amazon, John's at Lexington, and then I run a nonprofit based on privacy. So we'll look at the various ways that this can be incorporated in a nonprofit space, for-profit space, etc. And then lastly, we will invite anybody to come up with Q&A, talk to us, ask us questions, and it should be really informative. We're looking at packaging this throughout Cincinnati as well as a part of the Cincinnati AI Catalyst. So if it's something that bring value to you, you can go to your organization or company and talk about the numbers that you have and go from there. We will also be speaking and bringing this to a conference, an international conference in Banff, Canada. So we love your feedback, your advice, and hopefully it brings value to you as a part of the Cincy Cyber Week that we as a community have wonderful access to. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know Carl from the Catalyst isn't here, and John is probably at Cincy Cyber Week, but the Catalyst, I don't remember, anyway, the new Catalyst website will be up soon. And if you can attend Cincy Cyber Week, that would be fantastic. For the Ohio AI Summit, we had a whole cohort there. I don't know, maybe even 12, 15 people, which is awesome. Would anyone from that cohort like to get up and give their takeaways? Kendra, looking at you. No one else volunteers. Is Tracy here? Tracy, do you want to do the takeaways from the summit? Okay, come on down, Tracy. Thank you.
I think the best thing about the summit was that it was a really strong showing from our region, and we were able to get not everybody on the stage, but we filled the stage for a photo at one of the breaks. The other thing that was awesome is that one of the entire panels was all Cincinnati startups. So thank you. Nate Souter was one up there and gave you some great insights. And there's just outstanding progress being made, both with education and business collaborating and supporting our startup industries and our big coast taking AI where it needs to go. So they did a good job of showcasing a lot of the work that they did and how they're all partnering together. And some of the themes were very similar, so that's always comforting. And then there were all, of course, those that were somewhat unique, that they were really good at sharing their experience and how they've handled the growth, to the point one organization had to quit taking suggestions for AI because they had over 200, we have too much backlog, we can't do anymore. So to stop it and start to focus on the ones they really could deliver, which I think speaks well to the responsible AI part.
Thank you so much. Okay, does anyone have a last minute quick bite that they want to do? Okay, come on down. And then we're going to go to our speakers. Okay. Always like to go to open floor. Here you go.
My name is Vicki McMullen. I have a recruiting firm. I'm also a good UC alum. When a UC student calls me and says, I'm graduating, and do you know anyone who's looking for a student who is graduating with a master's in cybersecurity and also with a focus on AI? And I said, well, I'm going to a meeting, and what I'll do is pass out your resume. So I have 10, there's no fee. I have 10 copies of a resume of a UC student who's graduating in December. Again, we're focused in cybersecurity and AI, and she's looking for a job. And so if you want a copy of her resume, just let me know.
And one thing, oh, Chris, you want to come on down? And one thing, because we get all the time, like students are looking for jobs and stuff. I always encourage them to come up and do a quick bite. Every student who's done a quick bite and said, like, this is what I'm studying, this is what I want to do, after they get off their networking, always gets business cards. So if you have students that are looking, tell them to get up and do a quick bite too. Okay.
My name is Chris Brock. I got the opportunity to bring the chapter of AI Keepers here to Cincinnati. It's a really great organization. It's global. There's great hackathons that come out of it. There's really cool challenges. There's actually a white paper community. So if you're a researcher at UC or another university, you want to do some white papers, it's a venue to do that as well. We're having our second event. Thank you to Joseph at Ikora at his organization on Friday. He reserved this a long time ago, so we chose Friday. So if you can sacrifice a Friday, we are sure to make it an amazing event. We'll serve food, drinks, and a lot of AI. You'll see some great demos. Steve back here demoed our first one. It was an amazing demo of how video AI can recognize what's going on in a frame. He was able to look at books and then identify the book and then bring the book up in a web search. So just really cool things that we're tinkering on. Maybe not a full product yet, but something that's like, wow, if AI can do this, this is where you're going to see it first. So if you have the ability, check us out. We're the Cincinnati AI Thinkers community, which we check out AIthinkers.org. We love what everyone's doing here, but it's definitely like a little bit more of a deeper dive into tech. So please be sort of a developer, want to get your hands dirty in this this sort of organization where if you're just getting started, this is the best place to be.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and it is, one more, okay, really quick, and then we're moving to our guest. Here you go, Mark.
I'm Mark Blackham. I'm part of the Cincinnati AI Catalyst, and on our AI, on the education committee, one of the things that we're trying to do, and since there's a lot of business people out here, we're trying to identify businesses that are willing to take students, either high school or college, as interns. So if you know your company is interested in that, this will be kind of AI-centric, preferably. Please let me know. You can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Blackham, or at Rising Star Casino, Rising Sun.
Thank you. Okay, now it is my great honor to introduce our first guest today. And I know we're thank all of our sponsors. Adobe and the Content Authenticity Initiative has sponsored all of this meeting. So a special round of applause to Adobe. Okay, I'm gonna let Nick steal all the thunder, or I'm not gonna steal Nick's thunder to introduce. Well, actually, we have a video first from Santiago. Hold on one second, let me find it. Hold on, okay, let me find it without you guys watching me find it. Okay, here we go. I did clean my laptop today, so it's not a mess like previous times. Okay, let's get it back up. Santiago is, actually I don't know his title. He's like the head of the CAI. The head of advocacy. And he couldn't be here today, but he made a special video for us. So we'll play that and hopefully the sound will work.
Hi everybody, my name is Santiago Lyon. I head up advocacy and education for the Content Authenticity Initiative. This is an Adobe-led community of over 4,000 members seeking to address mis and disinformation by accelerating implementation of global technical standards around digital content provenance. That is to say, understanding the origins of digital files, how they might have been manipulated along their journeys, and sharing some or all of that information with you to help you make a better informed decision about what it is you're looking at. I'm really grateful to Helen Todd and Kendra Ramirez from CincyAI for helping put this evening together. And shortly you'll be hearing from my colleague Nick Gatz from Adobe's Government Relations team, as well as our friends Tim Murphy and Aaron Overhouse from Pixel Street, who will be describing some of the practical implementations. It promises to be an interesting and exciting evening, and I wish I could be there myself. But unfortunately, life gets in the way sometimes. In any case, have a great evening. Thanks again.
Sorry, the sound wasn't the best on that. Okay, so now Nick is a Cleveland native and graduate of Ohio University. Prior to Adobe, he had a career in public service, working in the offices of Senator George Governor John Kasich. And since 2017, Nick has been with Adobe, specializing in state and local government relations with a primary focus on public policy issues around AI and content authenticity. So give a warm welcome to Nick.
Awesome. Thank you so much. While we're getting set up here, it is, I gotta say, it's kind of cool to have Santiago. And usually I use Santiago in public official meetings because he's great. And so it's kind of nice to have him intro me. If you get a chance, make sure you Google him. He's a very accomplished photographer and has a deep commitment to authenticity and the truth. So I'll have to make sure he knows that when I get back. It was cool to have him introduce me. So thanks again for the opportunity. My name is Nick Gatz. I work at Adobe for state and local government relations. I cover the eastern U.S. and in my role I work with policymakers, governors, legislators across the country on different issues related to Adobe, but I'd say the bulk of my time, especially in the last 2 years or so, have been really focused on these issues around content authenticity and AI. So what I wanted to do today is just give you a little bit more of a background on the Content Authenticity Initiative and content credentials. And then I'll talk a little bit about how policymakers around the country are approaching some of these issues. And then finally end with a demo of a new tool we just launched called Adobe Content Authenticity, which allows you to attach content credentials to images quite easily. So to just start off with, I like to start off with this picture, because I think it really captured sort of a watershed moment for a lot of people, where we saw this image of a Pope, the Pope in the puffy coat, and it was maybe the first time for a lot of us that we saw that, maybe we can't believe what we see, or you can create things that look real that aren't real. And I'm not asking you to read all the headlines either, but I think it just captured this sort of cultural watershed moment where not even professionals, but just sort of everyday people were. This issue kind of came to the forefront and became an awareness for us. So to address some of these issues back in 2019, Adobe, along with several other media companies and technology companies, and formed what's called the Content Authenticity Initiative, which went from 3 members now up to over 4,000 members, where we're focused on and committed behind the idea of providing digital content provenance and information on content. And if you look at the companies that are on this list, you'll see there's obviously software companies like us and Microsoft, as well as media companies, camera manufacturers, social media entities, where all kind of swimming in the boat towards the goal of providing provenance on this information. And as you'll see in a minute, this is really important because it's important that content credentials are ubiquitous, but also that they're interoperable and that they stay with content as it moves through the life cycle. And again, in provenance, what we're referring to is just the basic trustworthy facts about the history, the origins, the edits, etc. on a piece of digital content, and again, applying to image, video, audio recording, and even documents. And so the technology that is underlying this is something called content credentials. And I'm showing you this logo. This logo is, we want this to become, sort of a consumer expectation or a consumer awareness and demand that when you see this on a piece of content online, you know that there is history and there's more transparent information behind it. And over time, consumers and users will want to see this. So we want this to become, something that everybody wants and sees and expects on things that they see online. And like I was mentioning, and it goes back to some of the companies that were on that list, but content credentials is meant to stay with a piece of content from sort of the beginning to capture. So from the beginning of taking a photo, being able to capture some of this information, to taking it in editing software like Photoshop or any other photo editing software, being able to track what an artist or what a creator does to it, and then publishing it. So whether you're publishing it on a newspaper site or a social media platform, that information being able to stay with it. And then finally, trust. Again, I as the consumer can see what this journalist or what this artist or what this creator did to this image, and I'm going to be more likely to trust it versus not. And I'll get to content credentials in action here in a second, but there's three things that really make up what we call durable content credential. One is just the secure embedded metadata that gets embedded into, again, an image or another piece of content that captures some of this information. Invisible watermarking. We're able to add an invisible watermark that can call back to the information that is in the content credential. And then cloud-based fingerprinting, which is essentially creating a record or a copy of it in the cloud, so that if that data is stripped or somebody takes a screenshot of it, you can still recover that information. And so each one of these three things have their own, by themselves, have their own vulnerabilities, but all three of these together, working together, again, create that robust, resilient, again, what we call a durable content credential. So while the Content Authenticity Initiative is, has 4,000 members, it's really focused on sort of bringing everybody together and educating everyone. There's a standards organization that's actually writing the open technical standard called the C2PA, or the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. And again, this is a standards organization within the Linux Foundation. And we are on the steering committee that's helping write the standard, but we have, again, a lot of other major technology players that are also actually writing the standard to this. And before I show you the demo too, I want to make to point out that the content credentials technology is open source. There's nothing proprietary to Adobe, and again, the success of content credentials comes when it's ubiquitous and it's interoperable across different companies and different tools and things like that. And then before I get into the demo, last thing I just want to show is that there's been a tremendous amount of momentum just in the last year on entities adopting or putting in place content credentials. So I won't read every single thing on here, but just there's some really exciting things with some of the bigger social platforms like Meta and Google and TikTok announcing their own initial implementations. We actually had our first government entity using content credentials. The Department of Defense is using this on their site, on their content repository site. And Time Magazine announced that it was one of the top inventions of the year. So there's been a lot of great momentum in the 4 or 5 years since we initially launched it, but especially in the last 12 months. So I'm going to show you just kind of a quick demo of how this looks like in Photoshop, and give you a little grace for those of you that maybe are creators that use our tools every day. I'm a lobbyist, so give me some grace. So I took this photo here in my neighborhood. We're all from Ohio. We're used to days that look like this, right? So this is just in my neighborhood as I was out walking my daughters. I've taken this, this photo into Photoshop, and first thing I'm gonna do is click the button to enable content credentials. So content credentials is meant to be an opt-in experience, except for when an image or something is wholly AI generated. So we have an AI tool called Adobe Firefly that you can generate images. Content credentials are automatically attached to things that are wholly AI generated. But for this type of experience where I'm going to edit this photo, I'm opting in. So I'm going to opt into content credentials. It's going to start tracking this type of information that I've opted into. And so I'm just going to do some edits here. into Photoshop, the first thing I'm going to do is change the sky from a gray sky day to a a dusk sky. And then using Adobe Firefly, using a tool called GenFill, I'm going to add just a yellow car driving down the road, and now I have this new this new image that is obviously edited. So now I'm going to take that image, I'm going to export it out of Photoshop. I'm going to click create a fingerprint or upload it to the Adobe Cloud, which is going to create that fingerprint. So if this data gets stripped out, there's still a record of it. And then I'm going to take that, the top image there, I'm going to take that and I'm going to drop it into a site called Verify, which the Content Authenticity Initiative runs. And when I drop that image into the site, it's going to pull up all this information in what we call basically a digital nutrition label. So I drop this image in, I can see the original, I can see all the edits. If you see there, it says ingredients, you can see the sky, you can see some of the other elements that I initially included but didn't. I used Photoshop, I did it on November 26th. So again, if you're seeing this on a social media site, you're seeing this, if for some reason the newspaper posted this, like you would be able to see like, okay, I don't trust that this was a dusk sky with a yellow car, And so another key part is this is really meant for responsible users to use, right? So we want good actors, responsible actors using this, like government, like our journalists, like artists and creatives that want to create a level of transparency and trust in their work. And then this is a different image. This is an image I did in Firefly. But when I post it to a site like LinkedIn, LinkedIn has actually implemented the ability to display a content credential on their platform. So when I post this, here you see the little CR icon that I showed you earlier will display on the site. And then again, I can click through and see that this image was obviously generated, but then I can click through and get some more information. So that's a little bit of a kind of a quick 101 background on content authenticity and content credentials. I want to talk a little bit now about how policymakers at the state level are really focusing on this issue. So to maybe zoom out for 1 second on just content authenticity, I think one thing we see just in a more general sense on AI is there's a real interest or willingness for state lawmakers in both red and blue states. I think there's a sort of reluctance or maybe you call it like a distrust of waiting for Congress or waiting for the federal government to act on some of these issues. So there's been a real push at the state level to sort of coordinate and see what states can do that are similar to create less of that patchwork across all 50 states. So I think we'll see next year, and again, not just content authenticity, but AI writ large, I think you'll see states trying to work together on this issue to avoid some patchwork on having every state having their own thing. And so this was a newspaper clipping off of an event that state lawmakers did that kind of captured that sentiment. But specifically on this issue of provenance and deepfakes, states have been the one that have actually been working on and passing policy this year. And specifically on issues like deepfakes, there have been several states that have done things around, the use or the abuse of sexual deepfakes. 20 have done laws on deepfakes or fake content as it relates to elections. Utah was actually the first state to pass something around requiring provenance information for their elections. And California actually was one of the first states to pass something around AI-generated transparency, or AI content-generated transparency. And then there's actually been several bills as well here in Ohio that have been dealing with, again, non-consensual deepfakes and electoral uses of deepfakes. So states have really been active in it, and we've seen a lot of interest in from other states on kind of taking that next level where there's been maybe a disclosure that something's been AI modified, taking that next step and kind of doing that additional layer of provenance information. So some of the policy recommendations that we have been suggesting to policymakers is retaining provenance data on online platforms. So some of those images that have the content credentials, if I post them to certain platforms, that data may get stripped out, and just the way it renders and goes through the process, that data will get stripped out. So if what we would like to see is if a user or a consumer brings this information to the content they're posting on a platform, that data is retained. So nothing special, just you retain the data and let the other consumers know that information is there if they want it. Second is, encouraging manufacturers of cameras and smartphones and other, capture devices to make provenance the ability to add it. Again, if a user wants to opt in and wants to add this, then they should have that ability. And then incorporating different provenance requirements and things like elections, right? Elections are important, election ads are kind of an important part of our society and culture, as well as they're also a very narrow use case that is already tightly regulated already, so it makes sense in that realm. And then the next two things I'll talk about together, but we also recommend when, for a Gen AI provider, if they're going to allow someone to create wholly generated AI content, that a content credential is added to that, again, if it's wholly generated by AI, but if it's something is edited with AI, that again, you just enable the user to add it if they so wish, because I think this is some of the feedback we got from the creative community, which was maybe they're using AI to edit something at the end or iterate on something, and it was getting a label of AI generated and kind of cheapening their work. So we want to make sure that if you're just using it to modify that, you have the ability to alter it, and then just general promoting public education on synthetic media and deepfakes too. We have a curriculum for junior high, high school, and college entities. If they want to teach students how to be more media literate or more discerning of things that they're seeing online. So just I think this will become an important issue going forward. So just to end the policy part of it too, I want to share a little bit about how our tool called Adobe Content Authenticity, and this is a tool that we just launched in the last couple of months. It's right now in a beta. I would encourage everybody to sign up for it. I'll have a QR code here at the end that you can scan. But this is just a simple web tool that you can attach and bring your images or content to sign your work with a content credential, and then also be able to set a preference on Gen AI training. So you can add a tag to an image or something you're uploading that you're telling Gen AI models that you don't want your content trained. They still have to respect that, of course, but this is a way that you can have that. So just again, a pretty simple, straightforward tool that simply just sort of spits out, or you put in, you spits out the information that you want to include. So I took this picture here before we get started. Again, pretty straightforward. I'm just going to click, this was a picture of the room. I click Room, CincyAI. I'm going to click that. I don't want Gen AI training on this, and then I own this image, and then they're going to apply the durable content credentials. So again, that's the metadata, the fingerprinting, and the watermarking. And then it's going to apply. It's going to sign content, and then I can download it from the screen. And now this image, the image that I saved, will have a content credential attached to it. And there we go. And then the other cool thing that we launched along, so I'm just going to go into, sorry. Okay, sorry. This one an edge. So anyway, so I took that image that I put the content credential on, and I posted this again just in my LinkedIn a couple minutes ago. And because it's LinkedIn, you can see again that I attached the content credential using Adobe Content Authenticity. And again, for the people that are seeing this now live on my LinkedIn, you can see that there's more transparency. Maybe they're more likely to trust it again because I've attached this information. The other thing that we co-launched along with Adobe Content Authenticity was a web browser, or sorry, a web extension that they can use in Edge and Chrome. And this will recognize if there are images on a website that do have content credentials. It'll be able to read it and understand that there are content credentials. So even if you go to a site like that has stripped out that metadata, it'll recognize the watermark, it'll recognize that there are content credentials, and it'll display it here on the ribbon, so I can see all these images on this Instagram page that have a content credential, as well as it'll display, again, here's an image again, and you can see if the cat were, there's a content credential, and then if I wanted to click through on one of these, like just as an example, I can click on it, click inspect. It'll take me to the verify site. It should take me to the verify site to, again, that'll display more of that information as well too. Anyway, but yeah, you can see that again there. It'll display all the information. Sorry, and then just to go back, I wanted to, I didn't show it here and there, but just to pull out the do not train part of it again, you can add this. You can add this to your content. Again, models have to respect it, and we're working with different companies and different models that do this to have this be a standard that people use. But this is an ability that we also at Adobe believe strongly about too, of respecting artists' wishes. So encourage you to. I'll put this up while I'm finishing up, but again, encourage you if you're interested in joining the beta and using this to apply content credentials to your content, we definitely encourage you. And so with that, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you so much, Nick. And we're going to do a Q&A afterwards, so get your questions ready. We'll put up the Slido link after our next demo. And let me do those introductions. Tim Murphy and Aaron Oberhauser are co-founders of Pixel Stream, a content credentials-based authentic media platform started in 2021. Prior to Pixel Stream, Tim worked in the print industry for 15 years building online design software. He currently leads the engineering effort at Pixel Stream and is the Content Authenticity Initiative's community expert on Discord. Erin's background includes over 17 years of experience as a graphic designer. Her focus on Pixel Stream is on user experience design for authentic e-commerce solutions to protect brand assets and product images. Tim and Aaron, come on up, have presented their work at the CAI Symposium at Stanford, Media Party at the University of Chicago, and Columbia University, and multiple virtual events with CAI. So welcome to the stage, Tim. I'll be talking about he sets up his laptop. I am a proud CAI member, so I definitely encourage everyone, if you've ever looked at a picture on the internet and was like, oh, is that AI created or not? This is why the content credentials exist. So I will hand over the mic to Tim.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, Nick. That was a great presentation. Everybody should definitely sign up for the ACA beta. That's going to be a really great product. So just to introduce myself, my name is Tim Murphy. I'm a co-founder at Pixel Stream. And Pixel Stream is an authentic media platform, and it's built on C2PA content credentials. Today, I kind of want to talk about deepfakes a little bit, and specifically something called the liar's dividend. But before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about how we got started with authentic media. So it was like February of 2022, and I was watching CNN, and I was watching some early coverage of the conflict in Ukraine, and they were talking about how they were authenticating content that they were receiving from folks saying that they were on the ground in Ukraine, or from social media. And it was a very manual process. Like, I was really surprised. Like, so they would actually use Google Earth to compare like satellite imagery to the photos they were receiving and look at the buildings and like compare paint colors and things like this to see if anything had changed. And as it turns out, a lot of the images were actually from previous conflicts. Some of the images weren't even from that region. And so it became really clear looking at their process that news media in particular, their sort of manual vetting and authenticating process for imagery and videos really couldn't keep up with the scale of social media and how many images and videos are created. So that's really when we started our authentic media journey. And so the first thing that we did is we tried to roll our own solution. And so we worked on something called steganography. Basically just sort of encoding bits of data into pixel data images to try to establish authenticity of an image and be able to detect if that image had been modified. Steganography and things like invisible digital watermarks are kind of a piece of the puzzle, but on their own it wasn't really going to work. And so we kind of kept looking, and it was the spring of 22 when we came across C2PA and the Content Authenticity Initiative. They launched some open source tools in June of 2022, and we attended their virtual event. And honestly, we were all in. We had like an image platform that we were already working on. We totally pivoted into authentic media and started working with the folks at Adobe and the Content Authenticity Initiative. And so that's really been an incredible 2.5 years for us. So like, why did we choose content credentials? So probably the biggest thing, and Nick kind of talked about this, but they're designed to interoperate, right, across hardware and software. And no one organization kind of becomes the source of truth. And so no one really dictates what's authentic. Nothing's proprietary. And so like, you probably wouldn't want to say like, okay, PixelStream is a small startup. We're going to trust them to say what's authentic. But you probably also don't want to trust one single big tech company either. Right? And that was the thing that was so good about C2PA, is that it's a mix of really large tech companies, like really large tech companies, right? And small startups and everyone in between, software makers as well as hardware makers. The other thing that was really good about content credentials is that it's based on digital signatures. So like you can think of something like DocuSign. So the reason that that's good is you can validate it. So if something is digitally signed and somebody tampers with it, that digital signature is not going to validate any longer. And so you'll know that this is not, this isn't valid. And it's also based on something called public key infrastructure, which already exists for things like DocuSign. And so it sort of associates an identity with the signer, and it kind of builds on things that are already out there and work really well. And lastly, it scales. This technology scales to the volume of social media. There's other things that you can do for authenticity, but it just can't keep up with the billions of images that are created on social media. So, in short, content credentials are a new kind of digitally signed, tamper-evident metadata that can reveal the origin and history of an asset. One of the things that comes up a lot is, what is the difference between C2PA and the Content Authenticity Initiative? So you can kind of think of, C2PA as an organization that makes the specification or the blueprint for how to implement content credentials. And the Content Authenticity Initiative at Adobe, they actually maintain an open source toolkit that implements that specification. And they do other things too, like advocacy and education and all those sorts of things. But that's sort of the way I like to think of it, is C2PA is the blueprint, the specification's the blueprint, and the CAI open source tools are an implementation of that. And so content credentials can be added at each step, every milestone, if you will, of a piece of content's sort of life cycle. So ideally, it is added right when we create something. So if you create a generative AI image, it's signed right when you create it. If you were to take a photo with a camera, it's signed right when you actually take the photo. This camera right here is the Leica M11P. It's the world's first camera that supports content credentials on the device. So when you take a photo with this camera, it's signed with content credentials right at capture. And that's really important because it means that nobody can tamper with that photo before you sign it. It's literally signed on that camera. And so if I transfer that to my computer and then edit something in Photoshop, there wasn't this sort of like time in which someone could get in there and modify that image. So essentially, the sooner you can sign something from the time it's made, the better. And so I think the Leica M11P is like the perfect example because it's signed immediately. And then of course other milestones like editing, you can sign it again. And then ultimately you have to deliver this content to websites and apps. And then oftentimes it's signed one more time with a publishing action. So if you encounter an image like this, right, we've got pyramids covered in snow with a polar bear. I think most of us are going to be skeptical, but we could use content credentials to figure out how this image was made. Okay, I don't know if you can really see that. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. I don't know if it's going to mess up the presentation or not. But basically what you can see is the content credentials show that the pyramids were a camera capture, and it was combined with AI-generated snow to make this sort of image right here, okay? And then this polar bear was composited in to result in that final image. And the reason that I think this is an important example to show is that things aren't really straightforward these days. Like, it's not just AI generated or just a camera capture image. A lot of times it's a blend of those things. And so this is an example of that. You've got a camera capture combined with AI generated snow. So you have sort of this kind of mix, and then we've composited in the polar bear. And so at the end we have something that we call AI edited. And so we don't say that it's purely AI generated or camera capture, it's AI edited. And so these are the challenges that we're facing, we're trying to create solutions for right now, is situations that aren't just clear cut as this is from a camera, this is AI. So what's a deep fake? The term probably comes from like deep learning and fake. I think folks say it originated on Reddit like in 2017. In general, it's just become sort of a phrase that says that this is misleading or deceptive content that was created with AI. So the example that we all use is the Pope wearing a puffer jacket. And this was created by a non-expert using Midjourney. And it was kind of just for fun, right? This isn't like a malicious intent kind of deep fake. But it did fool a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people thought, hey, that's plausible. And a lot of folks were just experiencing AI-generated images for the first time and didn't really know that this was something you could do. So this is kind of a benign example. This is a less benign example, right? So this is a AI-generated image that was claimed to be an explosion at the Pentagon. This image was posted to Twitter. At that time, I think it's right when you could sort of like subscribe to Twitter and get a blue check mark. And so a lot of accounts that were verified accounts promoted this photo as being an explosion at the Pentagon. And the stock market dipped, not a ton, but it was reported to be $500 billion. It doesn't take much of a dip in the stock market to reduce the market. And so this is an example of an AI-generated image that did actual harm to financial markets. And so you might be thinking there's a long history of image manipulation. This didn't really start with AI, right? It goes back to before photography. So this is a print, not a photo, of Abraham Lincoln, except it's really just his head. The body came from John Calhoun. And so they thought that Abraham Lincoln looked better, I guess, in this outfit. And so the printmakers changed it. So this is even before photography. More recently, we saw the Kate Middleton photo that was, not edited super well, and people could detect the edits. And so the question is, how are deepfakes really different than someone just using an image editor? So there's a few things here. One is just the scale, right? You can create mis and disinformation at scale. Next thing is it doesn't take a ton of technical ability to use a prompt. The thing that I think for me is kind of the biggest deal is that you can create things with Gen AI that don't exist at all in the real world. You can just kind of dream it up and make it. It doesn't have to start with a photo that you then manipulate. You can just totally come up with an idea and have Gen AI create it. So we just had global elections a month ago. So what was the impact on election integrity? So honestly, I was really happy in a lot of ways that there wasn't a bigger impact. And my personal theory is that prompt moderation with some of the major services was a really good start. So Meta just released a blog post today, I think it was this morning, maybe last night, that says that they rejected 590,000 requests to generate images of the candidates in just the month leading up to the election. And so you know that had a positive impact. If you use Adobe Firefly, if I try to say, like I tried to put in Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, had a campaign rally, and only 10 people showed up. And it wouldn't do it, right? So it moderated that out. But you can get around it with some careful prompt engineering, right? So you can just describe what you want without saying Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, and evade the moderation. You can use sort of like angles and things like that. And then some services don't moderate at all. So like moderation is a good start, but it's probably not gonna be the solution long term. So really we're getting to the point where we're just not gonna be able to trust our senses at all to determine whether or not content is authentic. We really need to start expecting that there's some kind of metadata about the origin and edits that an asset has experienced. And we think content credentials is a great solution for that. But this is something that I've been thinking a lot more about lately. The larger threat of generative AI may be something called the liar's dividend. And so this is kind of the idea that when you have a world with a ton of misinformation and deep fakes are really prevalent, then bad actors can claim that anything negative about them is AI generated or fake, right? And so people are starting to claim that real photos are fake. And so we saw that over the summer, the photo of the assassination attempt of Trump, where you can see the actual bullet was caught. People online said, hey, we don't think that's an authentic photo. There were folks that were trying to look at the angle, I guess, and say that maybe it wasn't, that this wasn't an authentic photo. Now, we know the photographer was Doug Mills. Doug Mills is a famous photographer, and even without authenticity data, I think Doug Mills' reputation would go a long way to us trusting this photo. But as it turns out, Doug was using a content credentials enabled camera. And so this photo was captured with content credentials. So another photo, a campaign rally, folks said that the crowd was AI generated, right? So that's another example of sort of using this concept of the liar's dividend. So the important thing to combat that is really, like we discussed, adding content credentials at the time of capture. I showed you the camera here a second ago, the Leica M11P. I think it's a tremendous camera, even without content credentials, but the content credentials, because that's kind of my thing, makes it just a perfect camera. It's a rangefinder camera, so I'm having to learn how to use that really well, but it's kind of hard to use in some ways for a novice like me, but it's a great camera. And then just to kind of be clever, I guess, I took the photo of this camera with our Pixel Stream camera capture app that adds content credentials that capture. And so we can actually validate the photo of that camera. And so I took that this morning, and you can see that it was taken at 11:05 Eastern, and it's somewhere between Dublin and Hilliard, Ohio, is where I live. And so this was basically that photo was just dropped into contentcredentials.org. There's an inspect tool, so you can see that the authentic camera, the photo of it, is also authentic, if there's any value in that. So the best way to combat visual misinformation really is about signing photographs and AI at capture, and then ideally throughout its life cycle with edits and so forth. So you might be thinking, like if you're familiar with things like EXIF data or other metadata, you might be thinking, like content credentials are just metadata, right? So couldn't a bad actor just remove them by taking a screenshot of it or like a picture of a picture kind of thing? And the answer is absolutely they could. And the answer is durable content credentials. And so Nick kind of showed you the example of that, but we can reconnect the lost content credentials by using watermarks and perceptual fingerprints. And the idea behind that really is that we start with the signed metadata, and then if that's lost, we can use this invisible or imperceptible watermark to locate the content credential. But you can actually fake watermarks too, and so it's not good enough to just use a watermark. So we use the fingerprint to add confidence that the watermark is correct. And so this sort of like, these three things working together allow us to relocate and give us confidence that we've found the correct content credentials in the event that the metadata is lost. So from here, I'm going to invite Aaron up, and Aaron's going to do a demo of validation as well as durable content credentials.
Okay, as Tim mentioned, we have a camera app that does sign on capture. That's on your right there, which you can see. So I think what I'll do is start with a photograph of the room. Here. Sorry if I missed you. Okay, so what this is going to do when I click use photo, you'll see it quickly is signing the image with content credentials, which you can see with the CR icon. We do a brief readout of what's there, some optional GPS data, and the claim generator is just the camera app that took the photo. The issuer is PixelStream, that's who holds the certificate that signs the image, and then you have a timestamp, which is a timestamp of the signature. So, quickly, I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to upload it to the PixelStream web app. This is going to, I don't talk while I do it. If you look on the left, you're going to see that image actually pop up. This is actually going to sign the image again. And this is where the durable content credentials come into play. We're going to add watermark and fingerprint here, which if I open up, you can see here, it's going to add some additional content credentials, but you'll see here that it's been watermarked. And then I'm going to download this signed and watermarked image, and I'm just going to save that to my desktop. Basically what I'm going to show you here is the situation where the content credentials get removed. This is very common if you, say, post it to social media on a platform that doesn't yet support content credentials. So here's my Twitter account. We're going to do that. We just do it live, you know, for fun. So we're going to post this image. It's locked, so don't worry, it's not going to actually post. So I'm going to post this to Twitter. The first thing I wanted to do before I did that, I'm sorry, I meant to show you this, is I do want to pull the image into our Verify site so that you can see that there are in fact content credentials attached to the image. There's a lot going on here. On your left, you'll see the provenance of this image, which includes the origin. And if you pop over to the right, you can see the asset origin. So this is sort of what we showed, the GPS location of the capture. It actually tells you that it was captured by a physical camera, and it will tell you the app that was used, which was the PixelStream camera app, and then at the bottom it will show you the issuer of the content credential and the timestamp of the signature. Back on the left, the top image is the active asset. That is the one that we just downloaded that is watermarked, and again you'll see it's added some attribution data. It also adds the do not train assertion for AI models if you would like to put that on notice. And then it tells you again the application used. Some of the edits here you'll see publishing via CDN, some resizing that we do as part of uploading, and the watermark of the durable content credentials. So we know it has content credentials. Quickly here, Tim and Nick both talked about interoperability, and just so that you can see, this is the contentcredentials.org Verify site, and it's just reading the exact same content credentials. You're getting a lot of the same information, and that is what's really special about this. And so if I go back here, sorry, I got a little out of order there. So we posted the image to Twitter, and we're gonna see what that does to the content credentials. Quick here. I'm saving that to my desktop. Now when I go to inspect the asset,
oh no, the content credentials are gone. This is where the durable content credentials come in. If I click this button to find similar assets, what it's going to do is it's going to look first for the watermark on the image that we inspected, and then it's going to match it to a fingerprint, as Tim said, to make sure that the watermark hasn't been spoofed. Also, as a viewer or user, I can simply look at the image and just visually inspect and sort of decide for myself first that I do feel like this is the same image, and then I can look down here and you can see these green icons are going to let you know that the watermark matched both images and that the fingerprint also matches. And then we can click through to view the content credentials and see that they have been relocated, and we can see that those are the exact same ones that we had previously with the origin version and then the version that was downloaded with the durable content credentials. That is it. I did want to also show you, just because it was mentioned a couple times, is that when you have images that are AI images, those are also signed to, and those are also going to be able to be verified. So you can see here that this was signed by Adobe Firefly, and also you can, oops, sorry, also Dolly 3 signs their images as well. So obviously really important to capture content credentials on creation of both AI and photographic imagery, but we want to make sure that we can distinguish between the two so nobody gets caught up in the liar's dividend. So, thank you.
I am going to plug back in, and we're going to open up our Q&A. And the Q&A can be about content credentials or really anything AI related or event related. We're going to use Slido as soon as my computer comes back online. Or you can do old school and just raise your hand as well if you have a question. So give me 1 second. Is this okay? Oh, we're already back online. Excellent. Okay. We're going to go to Slido. So we're going to ask the impact and value, but we'll do that after the Q&A. So you can go to this QR code or go to the Slido app, and then that's the number. I'm going to go ahead and open it because it will be on the website as well. We're going to go to present mode. And you can submit your questions. Show Q&A. Okay, so here are the questions. So you guys can start typing them. Okay, Chuck has his hand raised, so thank you for kicking us off, Chuck.
The question I have about the credentials is, what if you manipulated an image prior to establishing a credential, and then you establish a credential? Wouldn't it say, this is the original image, and from there on, it doesn't have to be marked as manipulated, it'll look like an original image? Is there a protection against that? And then the second thing, and just sort of a broad question about, if everything gets tagged with all that metadata coding, what does that do for privacy of pictures? Like, can you never take a picture and not have it effectively be forever, you know, recorded as this is the person who took it in this location and blah, 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 and like, you know, what does that mean for privacy?
Excellent question to kick us off. Who wants to take that? And if there's a bunch of, I might invite you guys back to the stage. we have a bunch.
So I'm going to answer the first question, I think, and I think Nick's going to answer the second one. So in terms of if you have like what we kind of call legacy assets, something that maybe was edited several times and then signed. So with content credentials, you have a couple of things that you can do when something is first signed. The first time an asset is signed, whether that's at creation or later on in that image's life cycle, if it's a legacy asset that wasn't signed at creation, is it gets an action applied. in the case where something is signed like at creation from like Dolly or Firefly or like the Leica camera, it gets an action called C2PA.created. And it says that this was created at this time. If it isn't signed at creation, it gets a different action, and that's called C2PA.open. And it simply says that this asset pre-existed, it was opened, and we went ahead and started keeping track of what may be changing at this point in time. And so I'll let Nick talk about privacy.
Yeah, to answer the privacy question, I think that's part of the reason why it's meant to be opt-in, right? So you can choose what sort of information that you want to include or not include. So one of the founding members of the Content Authenticity Initiative was actually New York Times, and one of their biggest concerns is, right, they have a lot of photographers in war-torn areas and areas where you probably don't want sharing your location, for example. So they may want to share that this photographer took this, that you can trust that he took it, but you may not want to share your exact location or even your general location, because that could obviously be maybe a physical concern. So again, that's why it's opt-in, and you could also toggle the information you share versus not share.
We'll put it on the mic, and then, actually, if we have a bunch, I'll invite you guys back up to the front so everyone can see much easier. Go ahead.
This is really, really cool, and I'm excited for this as somebody that does artwork. I'm curious if once it's there, in the question about like where it's stored, we might answer this. Once that information's out and uploaded somewhere, is there any process, like thinking about GDPR, is there any process to redact it in the future? Let's say we accidentally put an image up there with location, it's got a picture of our kids in it, we don't want that information out there. Are there ways to kind of redact information if you own the image?
Thank you.
So that's a really good question. And the answer is yes. So there is a redaction mechanism. It uses something called update manifests. The term manifest is sort of synonymous with a content credential, singular, but you can use an update manifest to essentially remove information that was in the manifest store or in the content credentials that needs to go away for privacy purposes, things like that. And then there's also other concerns too, like for instance, we use, like in our durable content credentials lookup service, we actually don't do lookup for images that have children under age 13. And the reason is you could resurface social media information that was added to the content credentials or GPS data that was added to the content credentials. And so when a lookup is performed, we actually just don't return those results. Because if you're on social media, if you've ever uploaded a photo that has location data on it, Instagram or Facebook is going to remove that. They're going to strip the metadata, the EXIF off. They also strip C2PA off. So a lot of people might be under the impression that when they post it to social media, that metadata is gone. But when you use durable content credentials, it resurfaces what was lost intentionally. That's why we make it, is to resurface that. But we want to make sure that people aren't resurfacing things they don't expect to, like location data or identifying the likeness of children under 13.
Okay, so I'm finally going to read the slides from this angle. Okay, so I'll have to go back to my computer to see the first one. What are the future applications you see for this technology? Do you envision a day where everyone will be required to have content credentials before, before posting?
And I'll be curious your thoughts on this too. But I think I think there's a couple interesting use cases for them that we've seen, and two that stick out. There's a ton. There's archival. There's a lot of two that kind of stick out to me. One that we've seen some interest, for example, insurance companies, right? If you need to upload a picture of, this was the car accident that I had. This was the damage to it. So there's like an interest in protecting against fraud or something like that. There's also actually a really interesting use case. I've been married for several years, so I'm not familiar with the recent experiences on like a site like Bumble or something like that. But there's a really interesting use case around Bumble using some of this to verify that you are who you say you are and this is what you look like type of thing. There's a group I'm sure many of you are familiar with called the Partnership on AI. Also, I'll make sure that this is included in the link, but they actually publish some of these use cases or stories about how people are using content credentials and some of the provenance data. That it's really, actually, there's some really interesting ones, but the bubble one was interesting to me. And then, I think envision a day where everyone will be required to have content credentials. I mean, I think just, I think speaking from Adobe's point of view, I think we would say, again, there's probably some unique use cases, of narrow use cases, like, again, if we're talking about like election ads for something like that. But it's really, again, we want good users, responsible users opting into it. So we would want it over time to become a consumer expectation. So when you go on a newspaper site, or you go on a social media site, you're going to want to see this, and it's going to become consumer demand pushing it, versus maybe like a law requiring everybody to put this on their Twitter page, right? Like, I think we would be more interested in, again, encouraging those responsible users to actually use it so consumers see what they want.
Thank you. I think there might be 2 Slidos going at the same time, so sorry about that. Kendra, we'll find the other questions in addition. So there's a lot of questions. Okay, so the first one that I saw up here that kind of hit is, where is the credential data stored? On the web, embedded in the image itself, somewhere else?
Where are we stored?
Oh, sure. So the content credentials, they can be, I should stand over here. They can be stored in 2 places. So they can be actually embedded into the asset. And so it actually lives with the file, which is really useful because you can actually validate things without an internet connection. But practically speaking, when you're delivering things on a website, you're going to use something called a remote manifest file. And so that manifest data is stored in the cloud, and it doesn't add to the file size. So if you're trying to get your pages to load super fast for SEO purposes or whatever, this isn't going to make for a super large file. It is substantial. Content credentials, you can choose how big a thumbnail is. So when you look at like the Verify site, you'll see all those little images. Sometimes they show up like thumbnail size. Sometimes those thumbnails are really big. Like for instance, the Leica camera, I think they're about 2,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels or something like that. So they're really large, basically not even a thumbnail anymore. So those file sizes can get really big. Remote or embedded are your 2 options there.
Okay, let's see. Is anyone able to build applications and products using content credentials, or is it closed access?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's absolutely not closed. It's an open standard. C2PA specification is an open standard. And then as far as using the open source tools, Content Authenticity Initiative maintains a set of open source tools. There's a Rust library, there is a JavaScript library, there's a Node library, and there's a Python library. So it's definitely open, not closed. It's encouraged. It's 4,000 members plus at CAI of folks that are looking to incorporate this into their workflows, either custom products or businesses and organizations.
Come over here. Okay, so who owns all of these authentication data in case of disputes? Can state actors stop this? Example given, which this is a very interesting one, Australia banning social media for under 16. I feel like, Nick, that's a question for you.
So I guess I'm just to understand, so can state actors stop somebody from attaching, or I just want to make sure I understand it. Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Okay, you can re-ask the question or raise your hands.
Yeah.
Okay, over here, Ronnie. Let me run over here.
It's something like copyright, those kind of issues that can come up. Copyright kind of issues that can come up as a result of that.
We'll have to get 2 mics at some point. I didn't wear my heels today, so I'm doing the running, the Vanna White.
So it's about copyright? Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think when you add the content credential, you would still own that. Again, that could be a way you could prove your provenance and your ownership on it. Yeah, as far as the state active social media part, again, going back to what Tim's saying, it's open source, open standard, so users can apply it at any point along the way, and they can do that. So hopefully I answered your question, but happy to connect afterwards if I can go a little bit further.
And we're going to cut it off in a couple minutes, 5-10 minutes, so that we can do our photo and leave a little bit of time for networking too. Okay, so how are unique credentials added to content? For instance, a statement certifying legacy data was created in the ordinary course of business. I know you guys kind of did a demo, but want to speak to that?
Yeah, I sort of can. So the question is certifying legacy data. Okay, is that like can the person who asked that raise their hand? I can kind of want to. So basically, if there's like an archival thing, if that's the question, so certifying legacy data, there has been some discussion on like how you could sort of create like an audit of legacy data and then basically include those audit sort of results into a content credential for things that, old photos and things like that, museums. There has been some discussion around that. I'm not sure if that's kind of what's going on here.
And one question too, I know I asked when I was at the conference, is if you have a huge backlog of data that you want it like the New York Times or something, how do you like go through your archive in like mass uploading? How would you answer that?
Yeah, so this in a lot of ways this is sort of a new beginning for content, right? And so there is an option to sign something like Nick demoed with ACA. You can take existing content and sign it, but that's really where the timeline starts. Now, the one thing that I'll say is that content credentials have an issuer, okay? And so that issuer is represented by a certificate that's issued to an organization. And so if the New York Times is signing things, my recommendation to them would be use a certificate that's issued to the New York Times. And that way, if somebody says, hey, we signed it today, these are photos from 20 years ago, we signed them today, but you'll be able to see that it was signed by the New York Times. The content credential was issued by the New York Times. And their brand sort of includes the goodwill associated with it, and that's probably the best thing to do. But the timestamps don't lie, right? They start whenever you sign it. That's when history really starts.
Just to add on that, like Tim mentioned, with the ACA tool, I think you can do up to, right now it's at 50 images at a time. And again, if you're talking about the New York Times, it has probably thousands, millions of images. That's true. And then, there's also, Adobe has products like, for those of you that maybe use Adobe Bridge or Frame.io or things like that too, the ability to batch process or batch attach is being worked on right now too as well. So I know a lot of professional photographers use a lot of those tools as well. So there is the ability to kind of batch or mass attach this stuff, and we, especially with some of like the example I did with we showed up there with the Department of Defense. There's also other commercial and government customers that have a large backlog of things that we're also working with right now.
I got one from somewhere else on Slido that I'll ask. Sorry about that. How can we address the spread of obviously fake, uncredentialed AI-generated content as potentially damaging, even when it lacks proper attribution?
I think the answer to that question really comes with kind of a leg of the stool I didn't spend a ton of time on, but I think is equally as important as all the underlying technology, and that's really sort of consumer education, consumer knowledge, right? So if I'm seeing something on Twitter, Instagram, doesn't have a content credential, I'm going to be less likely to trust it. I think that is just a consumer expectation and consumer behavior that will need to change over time. So one of the resources that the Content Authenticity Initiative has worked on is something called media literacy training, where teachers can use these resources at a junior high, high school, or college level, again, to be more discerning, to think deeper about some of these things. And again, that's probably something, my daughters who are 5 and 3, this will become a skill I think they will need to know as they get older. So I think the answer to that question is it's really consumers got to know about it, and consumers are going to want it. So when they see things on a newspaper website, they're gonna want that publisher to use content credentials because they'll want to trust it. And again, that's something as important as the technology. Just over time, I think it'll need to become a consumer behavior.
On top of that, how are you building that to people outside of the education system? Because you have a lot of naive people in the world that need that education. So how, is there any effort being done to take this outside of the high school industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I'd say one part of the answer is like we and I'm sure others that are in this initiative are totally open to ideas about how we can get this out to other parts of the, other parts of the world and other people that are interested, to the point, that my mom knows how, my mom knows what a content credential is and expects it. Yeah. So, totally how we can do, and again, where I'm focused on how, government can help consumers become more aware of this stuff. So totally open to any ideas. Again, we worked, or the Content Authenticity Initiative worked with, education experts and advisors to develop that particular curriculum, but we are open to any ideas on how other parts of the world or other parts of society maybe the best way to kind of get to them and reach them too as well. So yeah, no, great point.
I see a lot of similarities between how we started educating people on digital advertising and programmatic media to what's happening here today.
Can I ask one real quick? Yeah. Will the information, the metadata for anybody, actually, the metadata, the fingerprint, the watermarks, will those be indexable by a search engine or Google? As an example, I have on my content creator and I have an image that's copyrighted. Will I be able to search will I be able to search the internet for that fingerprint and find all the people that are posting it?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And so the answer is definitely yes. And so, the way durable content credentials work is it's adding a watermark. That's a really strong feature. So one of the things that we focus on is e-commerce, and in e-commerce, folks borrow product images. Sometimes on favorite platforms, Etsy, places like this, people borrow images from products. With the watermark, you can establish that this is my image, and I signed it on this date. And in terms of search engines, well, right now, there isn't a search engine that's going to look for watermark images or C2K images exactly. Google has added some support for content credentials at this point, but I think what you're going to see is, if you are trying to protect your content, there's going to be ways to use watermarks on the images, durable content credentials, to see who might be using your image that belongs to you.
So the other side of that coin is on the dissident, someone just takes a picture, posts it somewhere, and whatever agency or ruling is not good, it's not paramount. Whatever agency or federal agency in the after sees that picture, they can search that watermark all over the internet and find out if they can give them information. It's very similar to what it costs, supposedly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to let Nick answer that question.
Somebody has to bring conspiracies to life.
I'm not a public policy.
So just so I understand the last part. So somebody takes a picture. I just want to make sure I answer your question correctly. Can you repeat the last part of your question? Can you repeat your last question? Can you repeat the last part of your question? I just want to make sure I answer it right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the question is, if I can search for my copyrighted image, what what, if you're a dissident from a rotation or something, what stops them from searching for that, if they see a picture of you searching for that fingerprint to find out if they're in other places? And the example that I'll use is that I know that the fear with TikTok is that there were people that speak negatively about China, and that data is supposedly not in China, but they're having reports that data has been used to find people in other countries that are negative against China. Right. So how does that, I'm not saying I'm not looking for an answer, I'm just saying that, are you aware that that's potential, that could backfire?
Yeah, and I think, again, that's if you're, go back to like the New York Times example, or there's another use case that was written up in the partnership with AI packet from a group called Witness that does a lot of human rights work.
Yeah.
And so again, this was one of the things where again, maybe that is not an element of a content credential that you want to make sure is not shared or you toggle off or something like that. Right? So that's not something that's out there.
Okay. I didn't expect it. No.
We have so many questions. Thank you all. We do not have enough time to answer them all. We're cutting into our networking already. So we'll work and figure out how to answer them, maybe a LinkedIn Live where you can answer questions, or just over email. We'll figure that out, because I definitely want to make sure all of your questions get answered. In the spirit of time, we're going to go straight to the photo after this. Happiest holidays. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited about next year. And be sure to take the survey, and please go to the wall.